Today we sit down with Abbie Ensor, Senior Capability Manager of Data Governance at Coventry Building Society. Abbie has not only navigated but pioneered the evolving landscape of data governance.
Data governance, data risk is kind of all of our responsibility, and it's all of our problem. And it's something that we all need to get involved in.
In a time when data wasn't in the spotlight, Abbie's curiosity led her to carve a unique career path, challenging norms and infusing a sense of joy into her work.
We're all generating data every day, like every second. You know, our phones just following us around, messaging, you know, it's all data. And I think sometimes people think data is all code, but it's just so much more than that.
Sit down and enjoy. Abbie, let's talk data. Hello. Well, two firsts today. First time a guest has worn a full red suit,
Yes.
and I'm here for it. And also you've brought your mum, Sharon.
I have. I feel a little bit Santa Claus. But no, red suit and mum comes everywhere. So she's come to spend the day in Manchester as well.
I love it. Good duo. So can you tell me what initially sparked your curiosity into the world of data governance, given that it probably wasn't what it is today?
Yes. So, I mean, I've been working in data for probably the last 15 years now, and it has changed so much in that time. And when I first started out, it was kind of more as a developer, as an analyst, and we used to kind of be building things. It was a little bit Wild West, the way we were building reports. Everyone was just pulling data from wherever, kind of smashing it together in Excel. You know, everyone's done it. And it was just the difficulty to find the right information and to know what it is that you were using that always bothered me. You know, it was about having a friend in another team who knew the answer, or who could say, oh, you use this data item, or you should reconcile to this. And that actually doesn't include fees, or whatever it was. Nothing was like written down. You know, you couldn't find the right answer. So when you're producing something with good intent, you feel like you've done your due diligence. Somebody else has produced something with another figure, which is super common, but really frustrating. You know, when you put the hours in. So. You know, creating standards and principles that we could all follow, and having like a central catalogue and profiling of data, and, you know, kind of streamlining the amount of reports that were being put out there was just something that was really important to me, because it just drove me mad as a report builder.
So that came from good communication skills and being curious and creative, would you say? Yeah.
I mean, there was probably 3 or 4 of us in the business in different teams, and we used to meet up in the CAF because there wasn't a central data function.
In the CAF.
It was in the beach back then, and we'd get together and just kind of talk about the reports that we were building, the questions that we were being asked, and share bits of code. Kind of between us to sort of start to build like some consistency. But it was probably 7 years before there was any kind of central data office, even, you know, as a thought being created. So that's kind of just how we got by.
Wow. So what was your first role then at the Building Society?
So that I was an analyst, a data analyst. And it was a really junior team. There were 6 of us, and we worked in, you know, we worked in the data across the sales function, so our branches and intermediaries, and we were looking at, you know, the performance of each branch, like savings and mortgages, of course. But we also had a bit of a side hustle, which was uniform refurbs, which was just really bizarre.
It's so random.
It was. I think we just didn't know where to put it. So, you know, on a Thursday, we'd be pumping out all of the weekly MI. And then on a Friday, we'd have people coming in from the branches, and we'd be doing fittings downstairs.
Wow.
And we'd have like a dressing room and stuff. And like, you know, and I think my manager at the time, like, picked the textiles and, you know, the fabrics that we were using for the uniform. So it was a real mix.
And how long did that go on for then, the Friday sewing?
Well, I mean, I wasn't a very good sewer.
No.
So, but some of the other people in the team were repairing buttons and things like that. But that was probably probably a year, 18 months
Love
in that was
Yeah.
going on. And then the journey just started to change, and
Yeah.
it started to change really quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine. So before we get into the journey and to where you are now, what initially interested you in data then? Because a big piece of, you know, trying to get people into data is the awareness that it is a career path, and it is a lot more so than it, you know, was back then. But what was that jump from education to being your first job?
I mean, so I was doing my degree at the
Yeah.
same time, so I was doing that part-time in business management. So I was interested in all things kind of how the business worked
Right.
and hung together. In relation to data specifically, when I got the job, I was applying for multiple jobs.
Yeah.
And they were all kind of analyst jobs, but I don't think I really appreciated what those roles fully entailed, like as data was a thing. You know, I understood spreadsheets. I understood, you know, creating charts and things just from uni, you know, at the analysis of data. Get my words out there. But then stepping into, you know, when I got the job at the society and stepping into that data role, I think even then it was largely Excel. When I first started using like BI tools, they really blew me away. But getting something right and getting the figures to reconcile, I just found that massively like satisfying.
Yes.
And that just grew, and the more people that I spoke to and the more data that I knew existed, the more data I wanted to find, and then I wanted to blend that data with that data, and it just sparked something in me where I just wanted more.
Yeah, I love that. So how different does the department look today then?
Oh my gosh, so different. So as I said, when I started, there were like that. I mean, these still exist, little pockets of data teams that sit within the business areas, you know, and I do feel like they still have a place today. But about 7 years, so I was managing the sales data team. So after about a year of working at the society, I stepped up into that role. And then just started bringing more and more sort of tools and technologies in. And, you know, by the time I'd sort of left, you know, the team were fully proficient in freehand SQL. They were writing code all over the place. And then I was asked to start to build out our central MI Centre of Excellence, which was the start of the data office. So, you know, we just started putting it in a data warehouse at the time. There was a big program. We were looking at a new BI tool, which was Cognos at the time. And we just started to, you know, pick up analysts and start to work with the business to create a place where all of the demand can come in, and we can work with the business to deliver those the capability of being able to access and understand data, as opposed to everyone kind of just trying to do their own thing in their own silos.
Yeah.
Now we have a full, so fast forward another 6 years, say, we've got an established data office of like, you know, 70, 80 people. There was like 4 of us when I was in the Centre of Excellence. You know, we've got a data product team, data engineering, data science. We've got the BI capability. I look after data governance, and we've just sort of created the data risk team as well. So someone's coming in to start leading that out next week. So it's just scaled dramatically over the course of the years.
Did you go into that transformation journey naively, or did you understand what big piece of work it was?
We always knew what we needed to do, but it is really hard to do it.
Yeah, the execution is different.
Yeah, like the vision's there, and we were all like, once this is in, it's going to be great. But getting these things over the line, I think specifically the engineering part, and, you know, everyone wants this, you know, single version of the truth. Everyone wants access to all of the data so they can do whatever they want, you know. And when you start boiling those user stories down into requirements, all of a sudden it becomes like an engineering like nightmare, you know, because you can't possibly always answer every single question with the same model, you know. So I think at one stage, you know, we tried to do that, like, you know, a number of years ago. And that just wasn't working. And now obviously as technology's developed and we've got our operational data store, we've got the data lab, and chunking things up is actually okay. I think there was a time when it was like, no, it's all got to be one big beautiful model, and it just doesn't work that way. So I think the ability to chunk things up, but in a way that's simplistic, that you can bring them together easily and display them and people understand them. I think it was more difficult of a journey than probably we expected, and has taken longer than we thought.
So in terms of a data strategy, what stage does data governance come into that then, would you say?
I mean, for me, data governance underpins the entire strategy.
Right, yeah.
I don't think that you can do the other things without it. And this is something that
You're biased.
anyone from CVS will be like, yeah, that sounds like Abbie. Because if you don't get the foundations right of understanding what it is that you need to bring in, how people want to use it, whether it's any good, then you just, you sort of build it on sand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, for me, you can't do the sexy AI and data science unless you've got a really good understanding of the data and also the ways that it should be used. So, it should be used for the purpose that it was captured. So having those kind of usage agreements in place are really important, to protect the business, as much as anything else, but also to protect customers, that their data is being used, stored, deleted, appropriately. I kind of always come at it from like a BI developer's kind of perspective, because that was kind of where I started. I'm like, I need to know what it means, but governance is so much bigger than that. And being able to measure the governance and federate it is super important. So I mean, that's where data risk has come in for us, to kind of give governance some teeth, if you like, and to make sure that we're doing things in the right ways, but that it's consistent, and it's as important as cyber risk, and stuff like that. So for me, it underpins all of the strategy.
So it's been incremental steps, but it's interesting because I talk to a lot of businesses, and first they want engineers, scientists, and then maybe 20 people down the line, then they start talking about data governance. Do you think it's too late, or how long do you think it can take to reform that if data governance comes in too late?
I mean, it's a really good question, because I think all businesses, or most anyway, have been running without proper governance for a long time. And I think that AI has kind of come in from before governance really took off. I think like for us, taking that as an example, we started data governance and data science sort of at the same time. But it was without I think maybe the capability of people having access to data in the right way. It was just a bit soon. So the scientists weren't doing data science, they were doing just more developer work. And then governance was trying to catch up, and it just took a really long time to get the importance of governance out there. But I think there's a balance.
Of course.
But I'd be, it wouldn't surprise me to hear from other businesses that data science, we're going to do it, let's get a team in, but it doesn't quite take off. Because you haven't got the foundations, not just the governance, but like the capability, the engineering and things in place to allow for it.
It's like building a business, isn't it? Because like for me, building a business, I'm drawn to hiring people and shiny tools and fun stuff like marketing. But it's like, where are the systems? Where are the processes? Which are the foundations? And if you go too quick, you are essentially building on quicksand, aren't you?
Exactly.
So where would you say the future of data governance lies then? What changes do you anticipate?
So over the next 18 months, we've got a data risk transformation programme underway, which is really exciting. And this really helps elevate data governance and the importance of it, but as a risk category. So that's something fairly new. We didn't have data as a principal risk category before. And it just gives it sort of the importance that cyber and other kind of risk categories have, and will really help kind of underpin data governance and the measurement of how good we're governing our data. and how the entire business is responsible for that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, historically, when we first started the data governance team, you know, we were sort of getting some runs on the board, showing people the value of it. But actually, data governance, data risk is kind of all of our responsibility, and it's all of our problem. And it's something that we all need to get involved in. It's interesting, like when we've spoken to people out in the business and we say we want to do data governance, we want to catalogue our data, you know, we need to make sure that it's good quality and that it's accessible, and everyone's like, yes, that sounds great, I'm in. And then it's like, well, you own this data, you need to help us define it, and you know how good it's meant to be, and what are those rules. And it's, oh, well, I'm really busy.
Yeah.
But so being able to measure data governance by each of those areas and link it to, you know, a real business risk, shifts the focus that, you know, data governance is something that needs to be embedded. It needs to be something that we're all aware of, we are all actively managing. And you know, having it as a risk category enables us to just kind of measure and play that back.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because a data problem is a business problem, essentially, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So when you're driving data governance strategy, are the wider business looking for those tangible outcomes then, and that you can show, look, see, this is how it's working?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a difficult thing to show the value of, because if you're doing it really well, you're not raising risks, right?
Yeah.
In which case, it's kind of something that's happening in the background, and that is the end goal.
Yeah,
you know, when you get to that point. But there is a maturity journey with it, so you can't. It's difficult to say our data is red, amber, green as an example, because you just don't know yet. Because, you know, the way we're tackling it is, you know, using our high-risk critical processes. So we start with the business process, and we're working with that business area to understand, you know, the data from entry all the way to, you know, meeting with the DBA team as to how long this data is retained for, and that kind of thing. And when, you know, you focus on those processes, it's really interesting, and you can, you know, do your lineage and map it and capture that data. But that's just one process, and that takes a lot of people, like, can take a little bit of time. So to get to a place where you can comfortably say, we're good now, you know, that there's a real team effort that it's going to take to get to that point. And that's kind of the reason that we've sort of spun up the programme, is to just have, like, you know, multiple work streams and kind of just like swarm as much data as possible. Because, you know, my personal belief is that the data's good. You know, we submit, you know, if you were to think about it, like regulatory reports and that type of thing, like, we haven't got issues, you know, we haven't got like sanctions or fines, you know, if you were to look through the record. So we're doing it well. And the data's good, but that's reliant on, you know, manual processes, manual reconciliations, you know, the time it takes to make sure that all of those checks are done is kind of laborious. And that's the step change from, well, you know, it's all going okay, to, well, what was if we could automate that? You know, and that's kind of the end game, is kind of the automation of those processes. And actually, once you scale that and you go across and you can give people confidence and access to that information, it's kind of when your business is trusting the data and they don't feel the need to do all of these manual checks.
Yes, yeah. Because I'm gonna say, you mentioned that there's red tape and maybe a hesitancy to commit to data governance. Right? Is that from investment in terms of money or time or resource, or all three?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think we really understand and get the importance of data and managing it really, really well. So I think from a top-down perspective, there is a lot of focus, there is a lot of drive. You know, maybe 5-6 years ago may not have been such it's like so much investment, but that's definitely changed. Time and resource, I think that's just always a problem, isn't it? And, you know, because you need to rely on people out in the business who author the data or use the data, you know, or, you know, are analysing the data to be able to give you that context. You know, that because the data office don't always have that.
No,
you know, and they've got a day job. So whilst everybody wants it, is a bit of a mountain to climb to capture all of that in, you know, your data governance tool, to then say to everyone, here you go, this is now really, really useful. That's that maturity journey.
Yeah. And to get the buy-in, storytelling is key.
Yeah.
So what kind of stories have you told to get that buy-in and commitment from the wider business?
I mean, it depends who you're talking to. You know, there's definitely a carrot and a stick, I think,
know your audience.
With data governance. Yeah. You know, we're heavily regulated as a building society. So there is always the, you know, the pressure from the regulator that actually we have to do this and we have to do this well. And that's like the number one driver, if you like, that kind of spurs the business to be like, oh, actually, are we very good at this? You know, and you sort of take a bit of a look in the mirror. But there's also just the value of it, the value of speed to delivery and confidence and reduction of time with these manual reconciliations. Because people are pretty good with data, you know, people that are using it will make sure that it's right. And as I said, they'll have all of these manual processes in place. But actually, if you were able to unlock the metadata and say, look, here's a place where you can go and look at that report and see all of where it's come from, what it all means, you know, what the data quality scores are, validate those, then everybody benefits from your experience, as opposed to just you at your desk doing your manual reconciliations being like, well, mine's right.
Yeah, it's a bigger picture.
It is.
Yeah. So in terms of what you mentioned, there's lots of manual tasks.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to automate?
I think it's less of the automation, it's the trust in the automated reports.
Okay, yeah.
So if everyone can see the report library and that they're good quality reports and they've got somewhere to go in and ask a question, you know, I don't know, how many mortgage applications did we do yesterday? And it'll come up with, I think you should use this report. Then we've got consistency. We haven't got people building the same report in different ways, maybe with different answers. What an experience that I had once upon a time when I'd built a report for one of our exec and somebody else had built a similar report for the you know, an exec in a different part of the business. And they didn't match, you know, they had different numbers. And then it came all the way back down. It was like, both of you sort it out, which one's right, you know, and they were both right, but it was down to interpretation.
Right, okay. You bet you're both like, see, we're both right.
Yeah, because they looked at the data differently.
Yeah, okay.
But that's not written down anywhere. That's not visible in the report. So having, you know, I hang quite a lot on capturing the information about the reports, about the data, and someone being able to go in and answer questions for themselves rather than wonder, ask someone else, or start trying to validate the data themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing for me, but it'll just take a while to build out that adoption and to have done enough for it to be like super powerful.
Yeah. Can you think of like a pivotal moment in your career that a mentor gave you a piece of advice that sticks with you today?
Oh, I'll tell you about a bad piece of advice that I got, which was countered by a good piece of advice from someone else. So, you know, there was a leader a number of years ago that was, you know, I was talking about my progression within the organisation and wanted to, you know, become more senior and you know, lead the function essentially. And he said, yeah, well, you know, maybe be a little bit less 10, Abbie. And, you know, don't be 5, because that's not enough, Abbie, but maybe about an 8.
Does he mean on the energy scale or on the Abbie
just
scale?
Like just my personality, like just who I am.
That's awful.
And I remember sort of taking that away and being like, you know, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I am who I am, and it started to make me feel really self-conscious, particularly in an environment where, you know, it was mostly men. You know, we've done so much in the organisation to change that now. It's probably gone the other way in some areas. But yeah, that really like knocked my confidence and kind of just my self-esteem and things like that. I then, you know, a number of years later, repeated that advice to another mentor who was like, that is the worst advice. Do not listen to that. you should always be authentically you.
Of course.
And, you know, you are a smiley, happy person, and, you know, you have all of this energy, and that's a superpower.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
So in a room full of people that are more serious and corporate or male, like, don't ever stifle who you are, because that's what makes you different. And it sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But actually, as someone, you know, who was really trying to get ahead and sort of stand with, I sort of was scared to stand out.
Yeah. I mean, wow. And it took years for you to then hear counter advice to that. And had you changed your personality in that time?
There were moments where I'd tried
to,
like,
or you were aware.
Not smile as much in meetings, try to be seen as maybe a bit more serious. You know, and don't get me wrong, like, when there is a need, but I also think that you need to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the people and energy. And I think good energy breeds good energy.
Of course,
you get good rapport.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, some meetings can feel like really, you know, or you know, committees can feel really stale and really dry. And I just think there's a little bit more to the workplace than that. So
of course there is.
I don't even try to change anything.
Worst advice ever. Yeah. And you're so right about energy. It's actually one of our values at Mirai, good energy, because it really is. Sorry, what's the word? Oh, contagious. Like, it's contagious, isn't it? Like, you know, you'll change, one person can switch the energy, whether that's negative or positive. And you're obviously making it more positive through your personality. But you're not a personality that a lot would associate with data governance. So how do you find the joy in it? Like, do you think it's a joyful thing? It's just got a bad rep in a way? Because some people think data's boring, and it's like, it's not boring. Like, it can empower us in so many ways, but it's got that connotation, and I don't know why. Maybe a bit like IT did as well.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's got a bit of that connotation, because I think there is a perception that data's easy. You know, everyone should be able to access it when they want, how they want. I know that, you know, over the years we've definitely had pushback as a function that things just don't move fast enough. Governance is something that can seem a bit dry, but for me it's dry until you need it. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, where's the governance? What does that mean? You know, when it matters. And that's where it's kind of like, well, this is why you invest in it. It will pay dividends back. So I mean, anything data I can kind of get excited about, because I've worked, you know, in a number of the kind of different capabilities. I'm kind of comfortable in any of them, but it's just something that has to happen. Yeah,
and you're right, it leads to other possibilities, and maybe the more fun stuff that people associate with. So what advice would you give to someone, like a young female wanting to make her mark in the space?
Don't be intimidated by the number of males in the space. And I think, you know, when you do read job adverts, it definitely still exists that, you know, women are more nervous about applying for things that they don't think that they can maybe do straight away. I would probably say, coming into data, don't be afraid to try new things and step into different areas of data. Because with that, you know, you'll build your confidence, you'll build your network. Just be curious, play with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think until you, I don't know, create something that you're really proud of. For me, that's when the spark lit anyway. But I would say, try different parts of data, and don't hold back, and don't stop being yourself.
I love that, and don't be intimidated. And there is a gender disparity still, but I imagine it was a lot worse, you know, early on in your career. So what changes have you seen, and hopefully some of those are positive changes?
Well, I mean, at the start when we were doing the uniform, it was an all-female team.
Was it?
Yeah. And I'm not sure whether, I mean, not deliberate. I think because it was just a team that evolved, and there was a bit of a blend. That was how it was. And it might have been that men, knowing that was part of the job, didn't want to work in the team, which again, it just feels really old school, doesn't it? When we stopped doing that, and I think, I started to manage the team, it was all men for a bit.
Right.
I just couldn't get female applications. They just weren't coming in.
Yeah.
Which kind of blew my mind a little bit and made me sad. And over the years, that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
Which is great to see. I mean, now most of our leadership team is female.
Brilliant. Yeah.
There is a real, that it's really diverse. There are still more men, across the data office. But I do think females are getting more and more interested in it. We've been out to schools to try and speak to teenagers and even primary school, which was hilarious. Just about data. What really surprised me is we went to a secondary school only last year, and we were working with a group of year 11s that didn't get a placement for their work experience.
Okay.
So we came in to help them and talk to them about data, and we sort of had a little group each, and we were analysing some data and then presenting the information back. And I was like, right, okay, so it was basics. We were working with Excel, and they were like, oh, we don't really use Excel, and that just staggered me as a starting point, because that's kind of where it starts.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You're in Excel. Even maturing into an adult, being able to calculate your own income and your expenditure, you kind of need Excel. I'm that person anyway. But knowing that in year 11 they still weren't doing that kind of data analysis, that just really surprised me. So
yeah.
I mean, that's just, I guess, like something that needs to change.
I think so.
We need to be doing data as a, potentially as a topic or something at school, which gives people the opportunity to start blending data and using data and building out those skills, because it is a data future.
I think so. And do you know what, talking about Excel, as someone who can't use Excel, I feel very limited, but my dad and brother helped me because they're both mathematicians. They were accountants, so they helped me, but it drives me crazy. And when my dad does it in front of me, I'm like, wow, that was genius stuff, how you've just added that all up. But I will have to learn myself, and I know the moment I can do that, I'll feel so empowered, like yes I'm a genius. So what are they using instead of Excel then?
They were, I mean, I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure they were doing any kind of data analysis, to be honest. Even when we got to PowerPoint, it was like, they'd start putting some charts in and talking about it. They were a little bit more comfortable in that, but yeah, I just kind of, there was just a real disconnect, it felt like, as to end of school leavers and what might be expected of them in a job. And it might have just been that school, that class, I don't know whether there is a syllabus problem across the UK, but it just struck me as just sad.
Yeah, and it does start with education. I've spoken about this before, and it's the lack of awareness of what this can lead to, what career opportunities there are. And there are people who are taking considered career paths in data, which is great.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what the conversation was at primary schools. How were you trying to talk to them about data?
Well, we were talking about what they wanted to be when they grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, one child was hilarious. He drew a prisoner.
Really?
Yeah. We were like, oh my gosh. But we were getting to think of the data and healthy eating.
Yeah, of course.
Was the link.
Yeah.
So it was all like counting the fruits and things, what made good fruit, and it was maths.
Yeah.
But it was like what you can then do with that and how you can track it. It was really light touch. They were only little. But they were really interested.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because data underpins everything. Like, say you like running, how can you improve your time? Well, you know what your time is, and then it's like the 1%, the margins, isn't it? Maybe improve how you eat, how you warm up, whatever it is. That's all data. And a lot of people don't associate it with data, like fitness and health and wealth, relationships, whatever it is. So what do you think we can do at an education level, to try and improve the awareness?
I mean, gosh, this is an interesting topic, because I do kind of moan a little bit about what's going on in education. Because for me, if I think about my experience in education, in secondary school and things, I would have really loved to have learned, this sounds really dry and really boring, but around tax and interest, right? Things like that. That is data. That is really important. As soon as you get a job, those things matter. Like, what can I afford? What can't I afford? And that's just basic, like, life. I think if you were to do, have data projects in school that are more tailored to how to be, responsible as a human, but actually also other projects that are just really interesting to you, like you say, running, like, what's your passion? How can you improve that? Okay, what's the data, and get them thinking about what is available and how they can use it to better something, whether it's, their income or about a hobby. I just don't see it.
I agree. Making informed decisions. I've started reading more about economics. It's fascinating. Through the book Invisible Women, which is amazing because it's all about data and the disparity in data, and everything underpins, like female health, for example. But economics, I'm like, wow. But you feel like almost it's like London centric. That's what certain people learn, and it's not for me to know. But really, if we could empower people with all of these weird and wonderful subjects, it could help them make better decisions in daily life as well, not just their careers.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about access to the data,
of course
isn't it?
it is.
If you can access the data and know what to do with it and know what it means, there's the data governance plug. Then, there's amazing things that you can do with it. And, painting that picture, I think would empower and excite a lot of young individuals, particularly in a data driven, a digital world. It's the way that it's going, isn't it? And the fact that we're all generating data every day, like every second, our phones just following us around and messaging, it's all data. And I think sometimes people think data is all code.
Definitely.
But it's just so much more.
So it's brilliant that the Coventry go out to schools and you have those relationships. So how long has that been in action for?
We've done different things over the years. We've partnered with some organisations that do it more broadly. But we've been doing it for a number of years now. A lot with local schools. So as part of our community programmes.
Brilliant.
It's largely Coventry based.
Yes.
But we've been doing it for a number of years.
And do you go out yourself?
Yes. Absolutely love it.
Do you?
Yeah. I get so much pleasure from going out and meeting the children. But also the teachers. There's been instances where the teachers have been like, oh, that looks quite good. That would be really helpful. And you start to think, well, what are the processes that the teachers have, for data capture? I don't know if there are. I mean, there may be, but like a data person or an analyst or someone within the school reporting on the performance of the school or the children. And our next door neighbour's a teacher, and we've had discussions about this, and it's really manual. And I'm like, how do we, as a generation, just become more data literate? Like, it is about getting those basic skills that help people that are teaching to teach.
I love how passionate you are about it. I think you should write a book.
Oh gosh, I feel like it'd be rambling.
Have you thought about that though? I mean, do you go to events? Have you spoken on panels? And obviously today we're doing the podcast, but you're trying to get the good word out more, would you say? Because I think you should. You've definitely got a good voice for it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I've done some panels in the past just talking about data governance. I love to get out and meet people. To be honest, it's given me a lot of confidence over the years because, data governance as it was forming at the Coventry was quite a big and scary new thing. And you think, oh my gosh, are we terrible? And actually you go out and you speak to other businesses and you're all in the same boat. So I do love that about getting out and speaking about just the difference it's made for us. So when I can get out, I do get out. We've been to some women in data events as well,
amazing.
Which I just love. The energy there, it's a really inspiring group of women and an audience, and the guys there too. I love that. So yeah, and this is great. This is my first podcast. So
You wouldn't
thank
know.
you so much.
You wouldn't know. Well, the data community, someone was saying the other day, it's so meritocratic because everyone wants to share ideas. It doesn't feel like this competition. And I think it's because it's a new and evolving space. So, and this is why ultimately I want to start the podcast as well, because there is a loneliness to leadership. And like you said, you're going on a journey, but you're like, are we doing this right? Like, you know, but you can lean on other people, I think, in this community more so than others. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. It evolves so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think you can ever be comfortable.
No.
You can't be like, we've cracked it. We've got that down, you know, because as soon as you are nearly at a place where, you know, it's plain sailing, there is a change. There is a new technology. There is a new methodology. There is something that happens, you know, just demand, customer demand, like AI, you know, is obviously blowing up, and chatbots, and you know we're a kind of just you know a nationwide organisation and not as advanced in that space. So as soon as like one thing finishes, there's a new thing, and you might need to change some of the old thing to fit the new thing.
Yeah.
So it's
not an end journey.
No,
there's no end point.
There isn't.
No,
you're never done.
Journey.
You're never done, and I've learned that with data governance. As much as I'd like to be like, it's all finished.
Yeah.
You know, it's all governed, it's all perfect. It's just not the reality.
You can have that satisfaction maybe after one project or programme, but then it's on to the next.
Exactly.
Quite quickly. Right, we're going to move on to the data lightning quick fire round.
Oh, gosh.
What's one common misconception about data that you'd like to debunk?
I'd probably say that it's easy.
Yeah.
That just because it exists means it's easy to get to and build what you want. I think, you know, in our organisation anyway, people are like, well, the data exists.
Yeah.
Surely you can just knock something up, and there's just so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
It can be as complicated or as straightforward as you want, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to take longer than you think it's going to.
Yeah. Want to make it more accessible, but we're not there yet. Name a book, event, or podcast that you think every data enthusiast should explore.
I mean, I'd say Women in Data.
Yes.
For me, because I'm just a big advocate of that whole community and movement. And I think, you know we talk about women in data being for women, but I love it when the guys are there to support and get involved.
Yeah, it's important.
I think from you know, building a culture of diverse data offices, teams in any kind of industry, having those kind of forums and events to really shine a light on it, and to talk about some of the more difficult topics, like, you know, equal pay, and equal opportunities, and you know, things like that. That's where that kind of magic happens.
Yeah, it's amazing. The one I went to was last year, and it was the theme role models, you know, and about seeing, believing, and then you can be. And it was so interesting. And Jill Scott was there, the footballer. And she's, of course, you know, she didn't have a role model, but now she's a role model for young female footballers and male, you know, coming up. And I was just blown away. It was just a great event, wasn't it? It really was.
I mean, that whole shift with women's football
was
like almost like an overnight like epidemic, wasn't it? In the sense that, you know, I feel like over the years women's football has been a bit of an eye roll, but over the last few years, since you know, we started winning things, all of a sudden everyone's jumped in.
I know, and it's great
involved,
to see.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's not just data, is it, where there's a lack of representation either.
Exactly.
Yeah. Finish the sentence. Data is the key to
success.
I like that. I think that's the first time we've had that one. In your opinion, what will be the most significant development in the world of data in the next 5 years?
It is probably the development of AI, but in a more physical sense, like I don't know, like robots, like actual robots.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's more of like a tech thing. I would probably think that just building on the AI road, but making them in a sense that they're more like emotive.
Yes.
You know, and they're, you know, picking up, I think they probably are in some areas, but picking up on emotion in voices and being able to be a little bit more, I don't know, just more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Are you scared by that, or do you welcome those changes?
I definitely welcome those changes. I think, we are going to, the way the world's moving anyway, in my view, is that there will be a lot of jobs that change with AI.
Yes.
Or that, are replaced with AI. And there is definitely a fear. I think, there's a fear everywhere for people in those roles, particularly kind of call centre roles, that's going to be the case. But I think we need to embrace the opportunity that creates so many more jobs.
It does, yeah.
So AI and data, they won't replace those things. People will still need to be able to manage them, program them, maintain them. It will just create different jobs.
And it's the tasks more replaced, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for
so
coming.
much.
And thank you to your mum for coming as well. Enjoyed that. There we go.